Hi everyone, it's Karen from Karen's Crafting Company, and today I'm sharing with you another video on smashing another paper pad. And this particular paper pad was chosen for a card drive that Biddy Penny is hosting for the unfortunate tragic event that happened in Uvalde, Texas a few weeks ago. Biddy Penny does have her own YouTube channel, and she's also on Instagram. And I will have her information in the description box below if you want to check out the card drive. The paper pad that I'm using today is from Recollections, and it's called French Chateau. And it has 48 sheets, and they are all single-sided. And I know the cover doesn't really show it, but there are also colored sheets of cardstock. They're pink, dark pink, light purple, light blue, and a beige. And for the scraps that I had left over, the only scraps that I had were from the colored cardstocks. All the pattern papers, I used everything up. So not too bad, and with the colored cardstock, I will just put that in with the rest of my scraps that I have, just for plain cardstock. So before I show you all the cards I made, here are 2 bins full of all the cards that I made. The blue bin that you see on the right is full of A2 size cards, and where my right hand is, that's the front, and then my left hand is pointing to the back. And again, those are all A2. And in the purple bin, I have my slimline cards, and in the front I have my A7 size cards. And when I tackled this project, I did use several sketches. And whenever I make cards in mass production, I definitely rely on my sketches for help. It really does make the process go a lot faster. Now, before I show you all the cards, go ahead and make a prediction of how many cards you think I made total. And put your guess in the comments section below. I would love to see what your guesses are. And, just curious to get your thoughts on how many cards you think I was able to make. And these first set of cards I'm sharing with you are from the last bit of scraps that I had left from the paper pad. And, just a variety of different sizes and shapes of the papers. And, I was just trying to, put them together and, trying to match up, the papers. They all go very well together, which is why I love these paper pads. So here you see that floral pattern is an upside down L, and that was cut out and left like that when I was cutting out other papers for the other cards. And that cardstock that has the sentiment on it, that is basically just a piece of the cardstock that came with the pack. And I just trimmed that down to size, and I fit it in that little space. And then I added my sentiment, and I added those pink pearls there you see on the bottom. And that blue cardstock that you see as the card front, I embossed that with one of my folders, and that was that blue cardstock that was in as part of the pad. And those pearls that I'm showing you, I had a full sheet of those, and I was really happy because I was able to use those up for this project. So I've got 1 sheet of those pearls down. Now this sketch here that I'm showing you, again using my scraps, but I used one of Jess's sketches. She's Jess's Crafts. I do rely on her quite a bit, and if you've seen any of my previous videos, you will know that I do use her sketches quite often. And again, pretty simple to follow, you know, just using my scraps, using the cardstock, you know, to layer those pattern papers. And these cards here are also from another sketch from Jess. And again, I'll have all her information linked in my description box below. So if you want to check her out and see what her templates are all about, you know, I'll go ahead and click on her link. I'll have that for you. So these cards here, you know, it's great because I was able to bring out my scallop circles that I put my sentiment on. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know, those scallop circles were actually cut out from door hangers that I had created for my daughter, who is a Girl Scout, and we use those door hangers for the Girl Scout cookie season. And those scallops were punched out so that we could actually have that hole for the door hanger to hang on. So I have plenty of these scallops circles to use up, and again, I dug into that stash and was able to, you know, use up more of those circles. And again, you see some of those pearls on there, and you know, again, just trying to match up the different patterns together. And you know, I really love this paper pad. I just thought the papers really complemented each other, and you know, they really do go so well together. And I just love the foil that you see on some of these papers. They're so pretty. Now I'm moving on to sketches that I used from Crafty L, and again, I'll have her information linked in the description box below. You know, I'm sure many of you have heard of her and are hopefully even subscribed to her channel. She's another one that I rely on for you know, sheet loads when I'm mass producing, and I can pretty much yield anywhere between 6 to 12 cards depending on which sheet load that I choose. And here I used the August 2019, and this calls for 6 cards, but I only made 5 because I ran out of that really pretty pattern paper that you see as the card front. And my type A personality had me, you know, not want to use any other paper, but to keep everything, you know, the same. And so I did have an extra one of those pennants, and I just saved it and said, you know, told myself I'll use that last pennant on some other card as I go through this process. Next, I'm using the February 2020 sheet load, and this sheet load yielded 6 cards, and I did make a total of 6, as you can see here. And that scribble circle embellishment you see in the background, I used that on some foil cardstock, and that is a Tim Holtz die cut. And again, everything that I use in this video that I use for my cards, I will have linked in the description box, so you can check out anything that may spike your interest. And again, using up those pearls, they just matched so well with these papers. It was perfect. And the next set of cards is from the April 2020 sheet load. And I typically always fall back on this sheet load as it's definitely one of my favorites. And you know, you can see when I show you one of the cards up close that I'm definitely was using the colored cardstock for the mats on those 3x4 size pattern papers. And you know, again, using those scallops that I had in my stash, you know, more of those pearls. I just really liked how these patterns, you know, went well together. And you know, I have a sympathy stamp set that I was able to use, you know, on the majority of my cards, and I just brought that out and used that stamp set. I did use like another one or two of my other stamps, like Thinking of You type things, but the majority of them are more for the sympathy. And now I'm moving on to the October 2020 sheet load, and this yielded 8 cards. And it calls for 2 sheets of pattern paper, and I went ahead and used, for one of my cardstocks, I did bring in some of that foil cardstock that I have in my stash. I just really wanted to help bring out the foil that you see in some of those pattern papers. And what I did slightly different with this sketch was I added a strip, from the cardstock strip for my sentiment. You know, the sketch actually calls for you to put your sentiment right on that that mat, but because I used foil cardstock, the ink would not, it would smudge and it just wouldn't turn out. So that's why I added the light green cardstock, and again from my stash, which is great. And now I'm moving on to the June 2022, the latest sheet load of cards. And this is definitely one of my favorite sketches. And it's what we call a fun fold card sketch. So I'll show you here that it opens in 2 ways. So the flap opens to the right and then one to the left. And it's great because I put a sentiment on the outside. That sentiment says hello. And I cut that out with some of the scraps of the pattern paper that I had left. And then on the inside, I did leave it blank, but I'm thinking about going back and adding one of my my sympathy sentiments to the inside on one of the sides, and then just, you know, leaving one side blank for, you know, to have the message written. And that sentiment hello on that previous card, that was from my Hero Arts die cut word hello. So these next cards that I'm showing you, these were not from any sketch, and I have this white shimmer paper in my stash, and I used my Stampin' Up! Embossing folder, bricks and mortar, and it's so pretty, and the papers just went so well with it. And I just took the pattern papers and I cut them down into 2-inch strips and, you know, measured them. And then anything that I had left over, you know, you'll see later that some of the strips are not as wide, but that's okay because it all still worked out. And those ovals that you see there for my sentiments, I started cutting those out with my Big Shot. But because I've made so many of the same, using this same template, if you will, I decided to use my Cricut, and that got me, you know, that went by so much faster, and it definitely was a time saver. And you know, I just used it to cut out the rest of my ovals. And again, you can see the different size of the strip there. Again, as you can see, it works beautifully, and you know, it goes so well. And you know, as I bring out more of these cards, you're going to see that again, I used the same format, you know, in creating these. You know, again, just using different pattern papers as my strips. And you see me looking inside the cards, and that's because I did add scraps to the insides of them, but I can't remember which cards exactly that I added the scraps to, and that's why you see me, opening them up to check. Now, in person, obviously, the camera isn't really showing you the justice of the beauty of these cards. That shimmer paper with the embossing is absolutely beautiful, and these pattern papers really do complement that embossing, and they're so versatile. You can use it for any occasion. So birthday, sympathy, congratulations, graduation, Father's Day, Mother's Day, whatever the sentiment is that you need, you can use. And again, just bringing out more of those, different pattern papers, just showing you, the different papers that I had that I'm trying to use up to make these cards. I really love the foil here, and again, seeing it in person, it's so much better in person than what you see here on the camera. They're just stunning. And there's some of the scraps that I was telling you about that I did add to the inside of the cards. Again, just trying to use up every little bit that I could. And I had a lot of those size strips that you see there in different patterns. And, I just thought it would be a nice added touch to the inside of the card. Here's another pretty piece of pattern paper that I just absolutely love. Purple is my favorite color, and I just love the design of the foil on here. It's just so pretty, and again, it goes so well with that brick embossing folder. And these cards here, I actually had 2 full sheets of this pattern paper. I hadn't used it on any of the other cards that I'll be showing you, so I said, oh, I'm going to go ahead and use them for this particular card. And I was able to to cut up both of those sheets and use them. You'll see some on here, and then you'll see some on the A7 cards that I'll show you in a little bit. When you cut these pattern papers into the 2-inch strips, you really do get a lot of cards. When you're making a A2 or A7, it worked out really, really well, and it's such a pretty design, and it's so simple, and you can use it on just plain cardstock. You can use it on an embossing folder, whatever you feel like you want to do. So these cards here, these are actually an oopsie. The 3x4 that you see on the front, the cardstock I actually cut down to 3x4, and the pattern paper I cut to 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and it should have been the other way around. My cardstock should have been 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and my pattern paper should have been 3x4. Now, I didn't want to waste any of the paper, so all I really did was I just overlapped the pattern paper onto the cardstock. And I think it still looks nice. You know, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but again, I was able to use it up. And again, it just looks really, really pretty. And that stamp you see on the top, You've Been on My Mind, that is a Gina K design stamp that I have in my collection. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but again, I will have that in the description box below so you can check it out. And again, using up those pearls that I had, they just, again, match so beautifully. And this last card here, I basically mimicked Crafty Al's sheet load from the April 2020. So I only had the one piece of that 3x4 size, and I just adhered it to the cardstock using one piece versus two that you see on the sheet load in the right hand. So as I'm starting to move some of these cards out of the way to get into the next bin, you know, do you guys have any guesses as to how many cards I made? I'm very curious to see, you know, what your guesses are. You know, don't forget to put them in the, you know, comment section below. I'd love to see the variety of guesses. And here I'm moving into the A7 size cards. And again, I'm bringing out one of Jess's sketches. And the great thing about this sketch is I was able to dive into my scraps and, you know, use the scraps for this particular sketch. It was perfect. I mean, you know, some of the two strips, the two outer strips are obviously not as wide as the middle, but as you can see, it still worked out, and the patterns just really complement each other. And then I used some of the scraps of my cardstock for my sentiment. And now you'll see here for my A7s, I pretty much did the same design I did for my A2s. I mean, I just brought this A2 in to show you that I basically, you know, did the same thing. The only difference is A, the size of the card base, and then second, I used a different embossing folder. So that wood grain embossing folder is from Darice, and it's actually a 5x7 size embossing folder, so it was perfect for these card bases. And then again, I just went ahead and, you know, took my pattern papers and cut them down to size. I used the same oval, and then any scraps that I had, I added to the inside. And there's one of those fishtail banners inside. This pattern here, the pretty roses, that was just beautiful paper. I absolutely loved this paper here. This is definitely one of my favorite sheets from the pack. And it just went so well with the wood grain. And there's more of the scraps inside. Those longer strips definitely worked with the A7 cards. I didn't have to cut any of that down. You can see here that because I don't have as many of the same pattern, I was, you know, definitely starting to run out. So whatever I had left, I was, you know, just adding and, you know, to the front of the cards. And then again, more scraps and adding those strips from the that came with the paper. They were the branding strips that you see on top of the paper. I would just, they were perforated. I would tear them off, and I used some inside the cards. So what I'm showing you here is the card base, and these card bases I used are they were in packs of 50, and they were already pre-cut and scored. And I had bought those years and years ago, and I've had them in my stash for a very long time. And I had 2 packs. One was ivory, and the other was a cream. And the good news is I was able to finish up the cream card bases with this project. So hooray, I'm very excited that I, again, used something else up in my stash. And so, again, I dove into the ivory, and I didn't use all of them, but I did put a pretty good dent into that pile of 50. So I'm hoping to, use up the rest for, another upcoming project. More of those fishtail banners inside. I just love that purple and the foil. Again, another one of my favorites. I mean, overall, the paper pad was very, very pretty, but there were definitely a couple of sheets in particular that I just absolutely loved. There's another one of those branding strips. And more of those, smaller strip that I was able to, add to the inside. And adding more scraps to the inside using that branding strip and then some other scraps of the pattern paper. I liked how I layered, one piece on top of the other. Pretty light blue pattern paper with white florals on them. I'm glad I was able to use up some of those branding strips. You can definitely use them for sentiments too. And this card here, again, just took some scraps and, pieced them together and used that branding strip to put the sentiment on, and added a couple of more of those pearls. Pretty easy. And then these next few cards, that colored cardstock, I had, still some full sheets, and I really wanted to, use them. So I cut them down to 5x7 size, and then I pulled out another 5x7 embossing folder, and that pretty much took care of the job for my card front. And I just added the, the sentiment to that center oval design, if you will, on the front. So I was able to get 5 cards, 2 with that pretty pink, deeper pink color, and then 3 with the lavender. And those were, pretty simple. Just run it through your embossing folder, and then, adhere it to the card base, and you have a card. I mean, it's, it's simple. Now I'm moving into the last set of cards, which are my slimline cards. And for the first set, I used, again, Jess's sketch, and I followed the sketch as is, and I just used 2 different pieces of pattern paper. And for the sentiment, I just stamped it directly onto that thin strip that you see here that I'm showing you. And I really liked the way that these two papers complemented each other. I like that the light purple and light blue together, and again, just sticking with those two patterns, and then alternating them as you see here on the card base. And that Thinking of You stamp is actually a scrapbook.com stamp set that I have. I don't remember the specific name, but again, I'll have that for you in the description box. But I love the font on that stamp. It's so pretty. And I didn't put any scraps on the inside of the slim lines. I left those blank on the inside. And then last, but most certainly not least, I used Crafty's September 2020 sheet load. And this yields 6 cards, but I doubled it and was able to get 12. And I was able to use up the rest of my pearls on these cards, so I was very excited about that. So, this sketch called for, 2 patterned papers. And so I was definitely getting down to the last couple of sheets here, and I paired them up, and as you can see, I just flip-flopped them, and that's what the sketch calls for. And again, the sketch is so easy to follow, and it's pretty straightforward, and you can modify it any way that you want. It's really just a starting point for you. That Crafty designs. And again, here are some more, and again, just reversing those papers, and using the same, but then just switching them around. More of those fishtail banners that I was able to cut out of scraps, put on the inside. The last 6 here, I really like the combination of these 2 pattern papers, the butterflies and then the floral pattern. And again, using the darker pink cardstock, that the sentiment is on. So this finishes up all the cards that I made for the card drive. And again, I used the Recollections French Chateau paper pad. And now it's time for the reveal. Just how many cards did I make? I made a total of 196 cards. Here's the breakdown. I made 26 slimline, 47 A7 or 5x7 cards, and 123 A2 size cards. Now, before I did this video, I actually had another paper pad I was going to smash, and I was going to use it for cards only because I was always curious to see just how many cards I could create using one 12x12 paper pad. And then when the Uvalde card drive came out, I switched pads and tried it with this one. And you may be wondering, well, why did you switch pads, Karen? And that's because I thought the design papers with this pad were more elegant and definitely more suitable for the card drive. But no worries, because that other paper pad is waiting for me to tackle it, and I'll have another video showing you what I make with it. So let me know in the comments section what type of cards you'd like to see more of. A2, A7, slimline, mini slimline, fun fold, etc. I'm definitely interested to see what your favorites are. If you're interested in the card drive, it does end July 1st, and again, I will have all the information in the description box below. Until my next video, I hope your day is a crafty one. Take care, everyone, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.